Obviously, this is around the 90s, and there's a Monday Night War going on between WWF and WCW. Which promotion did you prefer?
You know, I think I was a WCW guy just because my early wrestling watching was AWA, and then when we got cable, like I remember seeing the Superstation NWA broadcasts before really watching the WWF syndicated stuff. And I loved Arn Anderson and the Horsemen, of course. I mean, who didn't? So naturally, I think once those guys were on TV every Monday opposite some of the stuff that was happening in WWF, I just naturally gravitated in terms of style to WCW.
Now, you went to a tryout, I believe, at WCW.
A couple times, yeah.
Who were the trainers there?
Paul Orndorff, Buddy Lee Parker. J.J. Dillon was involved. He was in charge the first time, and I mentioned a couple minutes ago about calling J.J. Dillon. I sent a tape first to Terry Taylor, who was working at WWF at that point, and I sent a tape to J.J. Dillon down in Atlanta, and then I proceeded to call them ad nauseum, until I would get a call back. And I remember I got calls back on the same day from both of them, from JJ and from Terry Taylor. And I set up, I happened to speak to Terry first, and we set up a tryout at the then Tracks, the original Tracks in Connecticut, to go. And I was supposed to go with the guy I mentioned earlier, Billy Joe Eaton. And then JJ called me back later in that day and said that he wanted me to come to Atlanta, and he was going to have Paul Orndorff call me. And then Paul Orndorff called me a couple hours later and was like, "No, you need to come here first. We have a much better, we can offer you way more." Like, I had no idea. I was just happy that Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was calling me. You know what I mean? I was 19.
Right.
So I listened to Orndorff and J.J. Dillon, went to Atlanta, had a great tryout. I don't have any of these power plant horror stories that you hear about. I get the sneaking suspicion that they did that to the guys who would pay their money to come and try out.
Right.
But if they actually had any business interest in you, they actually treated you like a human being. I have nothing but positive stories. The first time, it was Orndorff and Buddy Lee Parker. I was there for 4 days, I think. And the last day, I wrestled a guy named Hardwork Bobby Walker, if you remember.
Yep.
He ended up suing the company for racial discrimination. Again, he had one of the worst tryout matches I would think that ever existed. Bobby wanted nothing to do with working with me, didn't want to put me over in any way, shape, or form, didn't want to sell for me. I think he was insulted that he had to work with me. And then when I got done thinking this was the worst experience of my wrestling life in the ring, was handed a contract. And went home and thought it over and declined.
Why is that?
So you want the truth?
Yeah. No, Terry Taylor offered you, right?
First was JJ.
Okay.
There was two of these. I'll tell the Terry story in a minute. I was 19. I was engaged to be married to a girl. Her parents absolutely forbid her to leave Chicago. And I wasn't going to Atlanta without her. So I called Paul Orndorff back and lied to him and told him that, hey, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go back to college. And he got pissed at me. Why the fuck did you waste our time? Blah, blah, blah. Which I don't blame him.
Right.
I'm often asked if I regret that decision, and it would be, if there was one thing I would redo over the last 20 years, I probably would pick that. Do I regret it though? No, because I wouldn't be where I've been and done the things that I've done and had the life that I have now had I accepted that offer. And I don't think that I was mature enough at 19 to have succeeded. Honestly, I really don't. I can't imagine being in Atlanta at that period of time at, pre-21, trying to survive and live and having absolutely no idea what the hell the world's about. The second time I went back, I kept in contact with Terry Taylor. He's flip-flopped so many times, WCW, WWF, WCW, I mean, obviously TNA, now he's back at WWE. But he went back from WWF to Atlanta, and this was maybe a year later. And he said, and I called him back, and I said, hey, I called Terry, and I said, let's give it a shot. I don't know. JJ and Paul, not happy with you, blah, blah, blah. I said, I understand. I mean, I got it. I think I went through a growing period emotionally at that period of time. The chick, I ended up leaving the chick, long story short, so I didn't even marry the bride. Yeah, I didn't even marry her. So,
right.
God bless you. I'll drink to that. But anyways, they brought me back down. Now this is, 6 or 7 months before the company sold to WWE. So whatever year that was, 2000?
Yeah.
2000, whatever. And it was night and day in terms of how things were. First time I went down, I stayed at the Hyatt. It was great. Literally, the second time I went to WCW, I was in some flea bag. And I remember this vividly. The room I had, there were fucking roaches everywhere.
Nice.
And I'm going, what's going on? Like, this is completely opposite of the experience I had the first time. Switch rooms or whatever. And then I was there for 3 days. And so I get there, and Terry's not there. And it's myself, Rashi Brown, Skull Crusher, who I mentioned, who I went to Europe with the first time, and a guy from San Francisco named Tony Jones were like the three guys who were there to try out. So we go through the normal stuff, the workouts, everything's great, but I notice immediately that Rashi and Tony Jones are being treated very differently than I was. Like, they were running them, man. They were fucking stomping them. It was pretty intense for them. And I remember going, what the hell's going on? I'm thinking, I'm like calling Terry and he's not answering. What's going on? They're beating the piss out of these guys. And long story short, Terry didn't show up. I told Rashi Brown, who's a dear friend of mine then and is today, he goes, I can't handle this. Terry hired him at WWF.
Right.
And he was under developmental for a while. So when he got released from developmental, Terry said, well, come here and we can use you. Well, then Terry didn't show up for 3 days. And I told Rashi, I said, if Terry's not here on the Friday, I said, and he goes, I can't stand it, I'm going to leave. I go, they treated you like complete fucking shit. You're my friend. I'll go home with you. I'll leave, fuck it, I don't care. And I left the contract on the table there too. Terry was pissed at me for years on that, And the story he got was like, fucking these guys, they couldn't take it, blah, blah, blah. And I remember telling Terry, no, it's like, there's a fucking way to treat people. I said, number one, what the fuck's going on around here? Like, why are we in this flea bag with these roaches? And two, like, they're beating the shit out of my friend. Like, I can't stand by and handle this. What the fuck, I don't want to do this. Like, why would I want to be here?
Right.
And, he's like, oh, fuck, he made me look bad. Like, I'm sure there was heat on him too, which I totally understand. But at the same time, again, like, I was like, fuck this, I'll go home and do something else. It wasn't like the end of the world to me. Again, if I had grown up dreaming of Starrcade my entire life, I probably would have reacted differently. But I like to think of myself as a normal human being, and I'm like, this is not right. So fuck it, peace. Thankfully, me and Terry have since made up. But yeah, it was unique.
How would you compare WCW to WWF as far as a wrestler standpoint in your experience for each promotion?
I never got past the power plant stuff with WCW, so I never really got a sense. I didn't do any TVs for them. A lot of guys did Saturday night tapings and whatnot. Like, I never did that. So I don't really have a frame of reference to talk about that other than seeing what I've seen, to this day in terms of WWE at the Performance Center in comparison to what things were like at the power plant. I mean, not even in the same stratosphere.